three different types of monster movies. There are alien monster movies, there are human transformation and human mutation monster movies, and there are giant monster movies, which is none of the above, and those are the ones that we'll be covering in this guide. Those have transformed into CGI in the modern time, but back in the day we didn't have such sophistication. No, we had to make use of men in suits and stop motion animations to create our wildest fantasies which appeared on the screen. This will be an exploration of that golden age, and it began all the way back in 1914 with Gertie the dinosaur. Back in 1914, everything was in its infancy. Certainly the cinema hadn't really been invented, but what they had invented was stop motion, and what they had invented was drawing large things. So what they did was drew a large dinosaur, and using stop motion techniques, they frame by frame designed the very first monster movie. The dinosaur is probably the first and perhaps the last dinosaur to be fully trained, and in this video we can even instruct the dinosaur to do various things, pick up things, eat things, and stop messing about. The dinosaur proved that we are only ever limited by our imagination, and this early cartoon tried to appeal to the masses as to the popularity of huge monsters on the screen. It wasn't long before we got another huge monster. This is a D.W. Griffith silent film called Brute Force, which was released in 1914. D.W. Griffith was a pioneer in the cinema. You can see early works here using a huge dinosaur to recreate olden times, and this was a step up from the theatre because amateur dramatics was the thing that they relied on back in those days to convey terror and emotion, and a lot of these effects came directly from the theatre. You can see the next one is The Dinosaur and the Missing Link, which was the first Willis O'Brien film. This was a stop motion film created for the Edison Company because Thomas Edison was very interested in creating moving pictures, and so Willis O'Brien was hired, and he created maybe half a dozen moving pictures with the theme of dinosaurs. You can see that the idea was to convey a basic story, and the stop motion did take a long time to create the claymation back in those days. Stepping aside from that, we get another Willis O'Brien film. This is Prehistoric Poultry. This is another Edison film, and this was released in 1917. Huge slumbering great monsters aren't always our friends, but we can tame them thanks to stop motion and claymation, and thanks to Willis O'Brien, the idea of claymation took off in these early days. In 1917 we also got RFD 10,000 BC, and this was by Willis O'Brien. See early Flintstones influences as we see dinosaurs working for us, and we don't get to see that for many years until the Flintstones came along, but that had an influence on society. And you can see The Ghost of Slumber Mountain is the next Willis O'Brien film. This appeared in 1918, and The Ghost of Slumber Mountain features his favourite dinosaurs, which generally look like brontosauruses. And you can see in this film that a lowly brontosaurus is happily munching away on the foliage, but there is also a number of other dinosaurs, namely the Triceratops. And it isn't long before a major dramatic twist appears in the film. Stop motion, in this case, is pretty convincing to deliver what a T-Rex could do to a Triceratops back in those days. And so the next film is The Three Ages, starring Buster Keaton, and this was an early mix of live action, animatronics and stop motion to try to deliver the Stone Age experience. It wasn't long before the whole cinema moved away from comedy and more towards realism, and this is The Nibelung Siegfried, which was a German film released in 1924, and here we get to see him killing a huge dragon. Sure if this is the first occasion of men in suits or puppetry, but you can see that a lot of combinations have gone into place to make this seem real, and Germans led the way back in 1924. Our first appearance of a giant ape appears in The Lost World, which was released in June of 1925. This was a Willis O'Brien creation, a masterpiece, and you can see various animals attacking each other, which was very exciting to early cinema audiences, and it's still very exciting to us with our huge imaginations even today. This is the inspiration for Godzilla and most of the huge battles that went on later on in history, and also Jurassic Park as well, where we can see humans in the foreground and dinosaurs in the background. That's our first dinosaur falling off a cliff, and that's a recurring theme that happens quite a number of times. And King Kong and the beast from 20,000 Fathoms fell off a building, and that kind of thing. You can see also King Kong is trying to get us, but in this film it's an early instance of trying to bring dinosaurs into the modern world, as they idiotically try to bring back a dinosaur into the centre of London, and you can predict the result. This was a blockbuster formula, and many films try to capitalise on this success. Taking a look at the outtakes from The Lost World, we can see love interests going on and subtle story which we didn't get in the main movie. This did take many years to create, painstakingly frame by frame, and even the outtakes are really cinematic. Back to the mysterious island, and this is perhaps the first instance of a real creature being blown up to bigger than it actually is to create a giant monster. And that was continued in the Sea Bat, which appeared in 1930, and the Sea Bat is a giant manta ray which attacks human beings, and in this film you can see an early template for Jaws. Real-life creatures killing human beings as giant monsters can't really top dinosaurs, and this was Creation, a movie that wasn't actually released. This was a Willis O'Brien movie, and this is a test reel where they tried to merge the live action with claymation, and you can see that it tries to make a story which is also sensible and thought-provoking at the same time, and this kind of thing could only have been done with this early cinema. Now we have cinema history. It's King Kong, released in 1933, and King Kong fights lots of huge monsters, because this is a huge monster movie, and I think this is the first combination huge monster movie in history where he gets to fight maybe 5 or 6 different creatures. This is the creature from the Black Lagoon, which would also get its own movie a bit later on, and in this you can see huge monsters eating people and stomping people to death. Many of these scenes were actually cut from the final film because they were too sensitive for the sensitive audiences back in the day. King Kong is a menace, and it's a combination of blowing up a real-life creature to the size of a huge building, and not that many people who've seen King Kong can forget the climactic sequence where he grabs an innocent bystander and climbs all the way to the top of a building.
I wish I'd left him on his island.
This was followed by the sequel, The Son of Kong, and this was directly made on the same sets and introduced some more characters, including some more dinosaurs, and this is quite faithful to the Lost World idea. Again, we get to see a combination of huge monster battles, and giant monsters are definitely attacking the Son of Kong in this movie. Talking of giant monsters, another way to do it is to go back to the original pencil drawings and do animation. In this case, it's Popeye the Sailor meets Sinbad the Sailor, which was an early representation of Bluto. Another huge sea creature, this is the Devil Monster, released in 1936. And here we get to see another early look at a Jaws type film. Hal Roach video. This is a widescreen 1 million BC, featuring a very young Victor Mature, not to be confused by 1 million years BC, which came out many years later, featuring Raquel Welch. In this film, we get to see Galapagos Island iguanas with maybe a fake tail and a crest added, and you can see the very first instance of real-life creatures being slaughtered and real-life blood appearing thanks to the magic of cinema. Giant spiders are the theme of this film, with Vasilisa the Beautiful. Also in the movie we get to see an early King Ghidorah template as a multi-headed dragon. Speaking of spiders, you might remember this scene in The Thief of Baghdad, where we find another giant spider's web, reminding me of The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, or The Return of the King. Unknown Island is quite a long movie where people blow things up with guns and shoot things from a long distance, and a horde of T-Rexes get blown up in this adventure. You can see that we can lob grenades at those guys and they'll blow up, but that's absolutely nothing compared to the monstrously huge ending to the movie, where we get to see yet another giant King Kong, this time wrestling an early template of Godzilla. It's absolutely worth watching the movie to get to the ending, and the ending is very thrilling indeed. Guess what happens? Speaking of huge apes, we find Mighty Joe Young, and this is the last Willis O'Brien credit that we'll see, and marks the end of claymation. And this was the first Ray Harryhausen movie, and his young protege would go on to create many, many more. Lost Continent, in this case, finds Cesar Romero, not actually the Joker, but playing a straight role as an adventurer, trying to outrun Triceratops and Diplodocus.
They can't stick around forever.
Port Sinister, this scene reminded me of the Aliens movies, where a crab-like creature appears from behind and tries to grab hold of an innocent bystander. This crab is huge and it's about to devour us wholesale. Would take another leap forward in the beast from 20,000 fathoms. This was Ray Harryhausen proving what he could do, and this was an amazing leap in cinema history. Featured live action and huge animals, and of course we also end up in the city where we climb to the top of a huge building. This is a tremendous movie and I definitely recommend it. Another Aliens influence, this is Them, and this is about huge giant ants who attack human beings and have to be taken down with flamethrowers. features huge puppetry, and it's really a step in the department of huge creatures when you get such huge creatures which are utterly believable. You can see in Ulysses we get a huge creature in the shape of a man, and he has one eye. And for our next movie, it's another movie classic, it's Godzilla.
仮にこれを大戸島の伝説に従ってゴジラと呼称します。
Yes, it's taken a long time for Godzilla to appear. That was 1954, and this, for my money, gets a 9 out of 10 as being an absolute die-hard movie classic with bags of atmosphere. A giant squid in Disney's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and the giant squid is a great effect. Back to Godzilla, and we find Godzilla Raids Again, which is not quite as good as the original, but still very good film, and it takes itself very seriously. And it also includes some sentimental values as well. This monster is not for sentimental values. This one is going to attack us and eat us if it can get its filthy tongue on us. Yes, this is again a Galapagos Island iguana, and it's trying to break into a cave, which was already a staple from the Lost World movies. Quatermass experiment, we find an experiment which has gone wrong and has left a huge monster lurking in a church which is going to devour people. And in Tarantula we find a huge monster tarantula which is even bigger than the ants in them. Cannot escape the slow-moving talons of a tarantula, then what about something else called It, which conquered the world apparently in 1956. In The Beast of Hollow Mountain, we find a full Technicolor version of people trapped in caves and dinosaurs trying to get them, and this was another great movie, even though this started the B-movie genre, and the 20 Million Miles to Earth definitely was not a B-movie. This was Ray Harryhausen yet again with a tremendous character as the Beast fights large monsters and makes terrible messes in the city. Attack of the Crab Monsters, what do we find but huge crab monsters? And this was an early film by Roger Corman. Roger Corman, of course, going on to much bigger things. And in The Land Unknown, this is another Lost World movie with, it looks like, monitor lizards fighting each other. Thought live action was a little bit too much live, then you can always go back to The Spiders. This is Earth versus the Spider and is a perfect sequel to Tarantula.
Just a little bit.
giant spiders look common enough, then what about a huge man-eating plant? This is The Little Shop of Horrors, again a Roger Corman movie, which was released in 1960.
Look what you've done to me. You not only made a butcher out of me, but you drove my girl away.
Shut up and bring on the food!
Not to be outdone, the British delivered Gorgo, which is a somewhat reminiscent Godzilla movie, and Gorgo attacks London and destroys anything it lands in its way. See tremendous special effects are becoming the staple of giant monster movies, and men in suits weren't over yet because this was the golden age. So let's move on to King Kong vs. Godzilla, where men in suits really did get #1 billing on the status. This is Agon the Atomic Dragon, which was a TV series which was broadcast in 1968. Godzilla also ran away from Mothra in 1964, and he faced Ghidorah the three-headed monster also in 1964, along with Rodan and Mothra. In 1 million years BC, we finally do see Raquel Welch fighting huge monsters. In this case, it's a giant turtle, and giant turtles aren't too common on beaches these days. You also find a small velociraptor and a triceratops trying to block people into caves, and there are quite some caves back in the day. Next we find Destroy All Monsters, and this time the action really does get action-packed as we find a huge row of monsters all battling it out with each other. In the Valley of Guanji we see another outtake from Jurassic Park, as the dinosaur gets eaten by another huge dinosaur, and we capture a dinosaur and we take that in somewhat into the modern world in this cowboy western crossover. That wasn't enough. The action-packed Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla was another triumph of men in suits and fast editing to create an action-packed movie adventure. And finally, The Clash of the Titans, see the final Ray Harryhausen film and a swan song to the golden age of huge monsters in the cinema. Thank you.